So is this visible to you? Is the screen visible to you all? Hello?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah, fine. So these are the topics that we have discussed so far: groups, fields, vector spaces, linear combinations, um, uh, subspace, linear span, linear dependence, and so on. So I'll just recollect. I'll review all these concepts once. Okay, then we'll start the discussion from coordinates of a vector. So initially I said group is a non-empty set which satisfies certain properties, it is closed under an operation star. Okay, what do you mean by closed property? You take any two elements in G, then x star y is also an element in G, then that star is called a binary operation. Basically, star is an operation from G cross G to GIZ. So for every pair of elements, x star y is also an element of G, then G is closed under the operation G. In addition to that, if there is an identity element, what do you mean by identity element? X star E equal to E star X equal to X for every X in G. If there is an identity element and if every element is having a inverse, what do you mean by inverse? For every element, you should be able to find an element Y such that X star Y equal to the identity. Something like 2 into 1 by 2 equal to 1. Or 2 plus minus 2 equal to 0. 0 is the additive identity and 1 is a multiplicative identity. Similarly, if it is associative, x star y star z equal to x star y star z. Okay, so if this operation is a binary operation and identity element exists, inverse exists, and associativity property holds good, then the group G is said to be then the set G is said to be a group. Okay, this is called a representation of this type is called an algebraic structure, and this algebraic structure will be called as a group, and that group will be abelian whenever x star y equal to y star x for all x and y in the group. So we have seen some examples of groups. The set of integers is an abelian group with respect to addition of integers. But the set of integers with respect to multiplication is not a group because 0 is not having multiplicative inverse, because 0 into 1 by 0 is not equal to 1. So 0 is not having multiplicative inverse, therefore set of integers with respect to multiplication is not a group. If you take a set of real numbers, that is also a group with respect to addition. And from the real numbers, if you remove 0, the set of all non-zero real numbers will form a group. In fact, it forms an abelian group with respect to the matrix with respect to the multiplication of real numbers, because 2 into 3 equal to 3 into 2. So multiplication is commuted to, and every non-zero element is having a multiplicative inverse. So this set, the set of non-zero real numbers, will form a abelian group with respect to multiplication of numbers. Similarly, you can see the set of non-singular matrices of order 2 forms a non-abelian group, because A into B is not necessarily equal to B into A. Matrix multiplication is not necessarily commutative. Therefore, commutative law does not hold, but all other properties will hold good. Associative matrix multiplication is associative. Okay, every non-singular matrix will have a inverse, and a multiplicative identity exists, which is identity matrix A into I equal to I into A equal to A. So therefore, matrix multiplication is also closed. That means if you multiply any two by two matrices, the resultant matrix is also a 2 by 2 matrix. Therefore, multiplication of matrix is closed. Because of these four operations, that forms a group. The set of non-singular matrices of order 2 forms a group, but it is not an abelian group because matrix multiplication is not commutative. When it comes to field, it is a non-empty set together with two algebraic structures. Okay, one operation we call it as addition plus, other operation we denote with cross. Basically, these two are binary operations. Okay, so so an algebraic structure F together with two binary operations will be called as a field if it is satisfying these two conditions. First one is this must be F must be a abelian group with respect to the first operation F plus, and the identity element with respect to the operation plus is called zero element, and all other elements are called non-zero elements. So if you form the set which are the set of non-zero elements of the set F, if that is a group with respect to the second operation cross, in fact that is an abelian group, then that is said to be a field. Okay, so a field is something which is a group with respect to the first operation, and that is an in fact both that is an abelian group with respect to the first operation, and if you remove zero element from the set and with respect to the second operation, the resultant set is an abelian group also, then the field is said to be then the set F is said to be a field. And you can see some of the examples of the fields, like set of complex numbers with respect to addition and multiplication of complex numbers, set of real numbers with respect to addition and multiplication of real numbers, set of rational numbers with respect to addition and multiplication of rational numbers. These are all examples of field. Okay, they will satisfy these two conditions. Whereas you can see the set of integers with respect to addition of integers and multiplication of integers is not a field. Why? Because z z comma, if you take the, if you remove z comma first with respect to the first operation, it is an abelian group, as we discussed in the here. It is an abelian group. It is an abelian group. But what is the problem? If you remove zero element from the set of integers and with respect to dot is the multiplication of integers, is it a group? What are set of integers excluding the zero? Minus dot minus 3 minus 2 minus 1, and we are excluding 0, so 1 2 3 and so on. Will it be a group with respect to matrix with respect to the multiplication of numbers?
Yes, sir.
Is this a group? Is this a group with respect to the with respect to the multiplication?
Zero.
Does multiplicative inverse exist? What is multiplicative identity here? 1. Can you see? You take any integer x into 1 equal to x, which is equal to 1 into x. 1 is the multiplicative identity, and these integers follow associative law also. But the only problem is, if you take 2, is there an element y such that 2 into y equal to 1, which is a multiplicative identity? 2 into y equal to 1 means what? Y must be 1 by 2.
1 by 2.
Is this 1 by 2 an element of z?
Yes.
So multiplicative inverse exists, but that inverse is not an element of z. Okay, therefore this cannot form a group. When this is not a group, then there is no question of talking about abelian group also. That means these a set of integers with respect to addition and multiplication is not satisfying the second law. Okay, because it is not at all a group. Therefore this is not at all a field. Okay, so if any one condition is failing to satisfy, then the set cannot be called as a field. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now what is a real field? This is set of real numbers is called real field with respect to two binary operations, and the set of complex numbers with respect to two binary operations are called complex field. Real field, complex field. Okay, so What do you mean by vector space? Vector space is associated with the field F. So if you have a field F and if you have a non-empty set V, okay, then we say V is a vector space over a field F. Okay, if it satisfies the following conditions. Okay, we say the elements of V as vectors, we say the elements of F as scalars. So first set of conditions are like this. You take any two vectors, then you apply an operation. Okay, like addition, like plus, dot. This also a binary operation. Okay, so these are also binary operations. So with respect to this binary operation, with respect to this operation, if u star v is also an element of v, that means uh, this is a function from v cross v to v. That means you take any pair of elements u comma v, okay, their operation must be an element of v. Okay, so its image we denote with star of u comma v or u star v. U star v, if again it is an element of v, then that operation is said to be binary operation, I said. Okay, so that means v must be closed. That means v must be closed under this operation plus circle, and satisfying some more properties like commutativity with respect to this operation, associativity, additive identity, and additive inverse. Okay, so this operation you may call it as addition operation, not necessarily the usual addition of numbers or usual addition of matrices like that. We just call them as addition. Okay, that means all these properties are nothing but properties of an abelian group. Okay, so for an abelian group, the set must be closed under the operation, and it has to be associative. Operation must be follow associative law. Additive identity should exist, additive inverse should exist, and commutative law should hold. Okay, so it has to be an abelian group. It has to be an abelian group with respect to the operation called vector addition. Okay. Similarly, scalar multiplication properties. That means you take an element of the set V, you take a vector, you take a scalar. Okay, there is an operation between a vector and a scalar that is denoted with dot. Okay, so in the books, generally this is denoted with plus, and this is denoted with dot. This is called vector addition. This is called vector addition. This is called scalar multiplication. Okay, so you take a vector, you take a scalar, then there is an operation called scalar multiplication between a scalar and a vector. If the resultant is also an element of v, okay, then we say v is closed under the scalar operation dot. So it has to be v has to be closed under the scalar multiplication and satisfying these two properties. Okay, it is like associativity. So scalar into vector equal to scalar into scalar multiplied with a vector. This is scalar multiplication, and the operation between alpha and beta is a multiplicative operation. See, f is a field. What is a field? Field is nothing but a field associated with the two operations. What are those? Plus and dot. So alpha beta means, I mean to say that where are these alpha and beta? Alpha and beta are the elements of f. Therefore, alpha beta is nothing but alpha dot beta. That means the operation between alpha and beta is a second operation, which we call it as a multiplicative operation of scalars. So this is multiplication of scalars. This is a scalar multiplication. That means multiplication between a scalar and a vector, and it has to satisfy other condition. One is the identity, multiplicative identity in the field f, and u is a vector in v. Okay, so 1 into u must be equal to u for every u. So next distributive laws. Okay, so alpha into u plus v equal to alpha into u plus alpha into v. Alpha plus beta into u equal to alpha into u plus beta into u. Alpha into u plus beta into u. So if these three main properties are satisfied, then we say V is a vector space over the field F. V is a vector space over the field F. Notice that F has a element, zero element. The vector space is also having a zero element. You see, in the vector space V, there is an identity. Okay, so this is a null vector. Okay, because this is a identity vector in the vector space V, and this is a zero element. This is called zero element. Zero element, which is the element of field F. Okay, so if the field, if the vector space V is a vector space over the field of real numbers, then we will call it as a real vector space. And similarly, if the vector space is a vector space over a field of complex numbers, then we call it as a complex vector space. Okay, so if F equal to C, we'll call it as a complex vector space. If F equal to R, we'll call it as a real vector space. And most of the cases will be giving examples through real vector spaces only. That means I'm going to consider the field as a field of real numbers. Mostly I will be referring to real vector space. And this is an example of a real vector space. So what is V here? V is here R square. What is R square? R square is nothing but R cross R. And you know R cross R is nothing but the set of ordered pairs x comma y. In this case, it is written as x1 comma x2, such that x1 x2 belongs to the set of real numbers. Okay, so V is a set of ordered pairs, and your field, and it is mentioned that it is a real vector space. That means V of R, the set of ordered pairs, is a real vector space. R, what is V? V is nothing but a set of ordered pairs, R square. R square is a vector space over the field of real numbers. With respect to what operations? With respect to addition of two ordered pairs. Okay, with respect to addition, how do you add two ordered pairs? You add the corresponding elements of the ordered pairs. X1, X2 plus Y1, Y2 is nothing but X1 plus X2, X1 plus X2 comma Y1 plus Y2. And what is the scalar multiplication? Alpha is a real number. X1 comma X2 is an ordered pair. Ordered pair is nothing but an element of this set V. So this is a vector, this is a scalar. This is a scalar because this is an element of R, which is a field. And this is a vector because this is an element of V, which is a vector R square. Okay. So, and so if you multiply scalar with the vector, what happens again? You will get an ordered pair like this. Okay, alpha into x1 comma alpha into x2. Any ordered pair is nothing but an element of the set V, which is R square. Therefore, these two are closed. Vector addition is closed, scalar multiplication is closed. Also, these two operations will satisfy all the conditions that are mentioned here. Therefore, we can say that the set of real numbers, the set of R square, R cross R, can be a vector space over the field of real number. Therefore, I can say it is simply a real vector space. Okay, is this a vector space over the field of complex numbers? Can you say? Is R square a vector space over the field of complex numbers? Is this vector space? Can you please tell me? Is this law satisfied? See, my set is R square. Let me take 2 comma 3. Okay, 2 comma 3 I have taken, and alpha is a scalar. Scalar is an element of the field, and if my field is C, the set of complex numbers, so what is an element of the set of complex numbers? I. So what is the scalar multiplication? I into 2 comma 3. What happens? What is this resultant? 2i comma 3i. Is this an element of R square? Can you please tell me?
No.
Because R square has ordered pairs where the coordinates are basically real numbers. Are these real numbers? 2i and 3 are real numbers?
No.
They are not real numbers. Therefore, you cannot view R square as a complex vector space, because R square cannot be a vector space over the field of complex numbers. R square is only a vector space over the field of real numbers. Is that okay? So when you change the field, then the set may not become a vector space. Okay, so vector space, a set becomes a vector space. Okay, it also depends depending on the field that you are choosing. Is it clear? Shall I proceed? Hello. May I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So next concept is about linear combinations and spanning, and I explained this in the class. Okay. So if you have a set of vectors, okay, and generally field is denoted with k. K can be R or F. By default, you assume that as by default, unless otherwise mentioned, you always assume that K equal to R. You can identify K with the field K with the set of real numbers, the field of real numbers. Okay, and so if you have a set of vectors, okay, so whenever I say vector, that means to say that they are the elements of the vector space V. Okay, so if you have a set of vectors, okay, what do you mean by linear combination of these vectors? Okay, you take some scalars a1, a2, and so on, am, and if you are forming uh, an expression like this, a1 u1, a1 is a scalar, u1 is a vector, a1 into u1 is a vector, sum of vectors is a vector, so this expression is going to be a vector. So an expression of this form is called a linear combination of the given vectors u1, u2, and so on, vn. And v is said to be a linear combination of a set of vectors if you express v, if there exists some scalars a1, a2, and so on, am, such that vector, given vector, can be expressed as a linear combination of the given vectors. Okay, for example, if you want to express a vector v as a linear combination of three vectors like this, okay, that may or may not be possible. For a randomly given vector, expressing that as a linear combination of the given vectors is possible or not, we have to see. If that is possible, we'll say there exists such scalars such that the given vector can be expressed as a linear combination. Okay, so here we have to see. So the vector 374 was asked to express it as a linear combination of u1, u2, u3. So what is the vector v3, 7, minus 4? That was written. Okay, 3. I think there is a mistake here. This must be 7, right? You can see 3, 7, minus 4. Okay, so this vector is 3, 7, minus 4. Okay, we want to express this as a linear combination of these three vectors. That means x into u1. What is u1? 1, 2, 3 plus y into u2. 2, 3, 7 plus z into 3, 5, 6. Okay, so this is nothing but scalar multiplication and vector addition. So x into 1 is x, 2 into y is 2y, 3 into z is 3z, and sum of vectors is adding the corresponding elements. So this is actually x plus 2y plus 3z. Second one is 2x plus 3y plus 5z. Next one is 3x plus 7y plus 6z. This must be equal to 3, 7, minus 4. And two vectors are equal if and only if the corresponding components are equal. That means 2x plus, you can see here, 2x plus x plus 2y plus 3z. X plus 2y plus 3z must be 3 corresponding elements. 2x plus 3y plus 5z. Okay. 2x plus 3y plus 5z must be 7. Okay, 7. It is written here 7. And x plus 7y plus 6z. 3x plus 7y plus 6z. 3x plus 7y plus 6z minus 2 equal to minus 4. And what is this three? What are these three equations together called? What are these three equations together called?
System of equations.
What kind of system of linear equations? What kind of system of linear equation? See the right hand side values. Are they zero or non-zero?
Non-zero.
So what kind of system of linear equations they are? Non-homogeneous system of linear equations. No. You know, system of linear equations you have studied is homogeneous, non-homogeneous. When the system is non-homogeneous, if the right hand side values are non-zero, then we say non-homogeneous. You know, every non-homogeneous system can be expressed in the form Ax equal to B. Am I right? And what is A? A is 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 5, 3, 7, 6 into x. What is x? X, y, z equal to B. What is B? 3, 7, minus 4. And you know, this non-homogeneous system may or may not be consistent. What do you mean by consistent? If there is a solution, we say the system is consistent, otherwise inconsistent. So if you can find out a solution to this system, that means to say that there are some values x, y, z for which you are able to express the vector as a linear combination of the remaining vector, given three vectors. Right? If there is no solution, that means to say that you cannot express this vector as a linear combination of these three vectors. That means you cannot find out such x, y, z such that the given vector can be expressed as a linear combination of the given vectors. Is it clear? Now, you know how to test for consistency, and if consistent, how to solve the system, you know. Am I right or not? How do you test for consistency? How do you know whether this system is going to have a solution or not?
Check the rank.
Rank of what? Rank of the
Rank of A and
rank of the augmented matrix, right?
yes, sir.
What is augmented matrix? 1,
A.
2, 3, 2, 3, 7, 3, 5, 6. Augment
3,
with
7.
3,
Yes.
7, minus
Minus 4.
You convert this into echelon form. Then identify the rank of the quotient matrix and the rank of the augmented matrix. If those two ranks are equal, then you say it is going to have a solution. Right? If solution exists, then you can start solving the system for the solution. Okay? Whatever the values x, y, z you get, for those values of x, y, z, you can express this vector as a linear combination of these vectors. Is it clear?
Sir.
So when solved this system, they got the solution as x equal to 2, y equal to minus 4, and z equal to 3. Okay. So that means to say that you are able to express this vector as x equal to 2. That means 2u minus 4, 2u1 minus 4u2 plus 3u3. Okay. So we are able to find out such set of scalars. Is it fine? Shall I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Right. So what are spanning sets? So suppose if you have a set of vectors like this, u1, u2, and so on, un. Okay, you find out all possible linear combinations. You find out all possible linear combinations. The set that is formed by all possible linear combinations is called a spanning set. That means alpha 1 u1 plus alpha 2 u2 plus and so on plus alpha m un. So that what are alpha 1, alpha 2? Alpha 1, alpha 2, and alpha m are elements of where? These are called what? From where I am selecting these alpha 1, alpha 2. From the field K, because this is a linear combination. No? Linear combination means what? Scalar into vector plus scalar into another vector plus and so on. So these elements are these are the scalars which are taken from the field K. That field can be set of real numbers. So you take all possible linear combinations. That set is called a spanning set, or the set spanned by the set of vectors. Okay. So what the result says is, okay, if there is any vector which is spanned by these set of vectors, then if you add this vector to this set of vectors, that also will span the same set. That means the set spanned by this is same as the set spanned by alpha 1 u1 plus alpha 2 u2 plus and so on plus alpha m um plus some beta 1 w, where beta 1, alpha 1 and so on alpha m are the elements of the field, because this w is actually coming from this one only. I said beta is a element spanned by the set of vectors u1, u2 and so on um. That means beta can be expressed as a linear combination of these vectors. So beta is actually a linear combination of u1, u2 and so on um. So linear combination of u1, u2, um plus linear combination of u1, u2, um is again a linear combination of u1, u2, um. That is nothing but an element of this set spanned by this set of vectors. So if you are having a set of vectors which spans a given set, then any superset of that also spans. That means any superset. Okay, so that means u1, u2, u3 is spanning a set, let us say S. Okay, then you take any element of the set. Sorry, you take any element of the set S. Okay, then u1, u2, u3 and this w, this also will span the same set. That is what the remark says. Okay, and what do you mean by subspace? Okay, and as I said earlier in the class, subgroup, subfield, subspace, they are the subsets of the original set, which are themselves groups, fields and vector spaces itself with respect to the original operations. Okay, that means if I want to call W is a subspace, of V or a field F, then W or the field F itself must be a space, is a vector space. Okay, so if W is also vector space with respect to the same operations, whatever the operations you are defining on V, with respect to the same operations, what is W? Basically W is a subset of V. W is a subset of V, and W itself is a vector space with respect to the same operations that are defined on this set and over the same field F, then that is said to be a vector space. And a necessary and sufficient condition to check whether a given subset of a vector space is subspace or not is to check this condition. Okay, you take any two elements of W and you take any two scalars, two elements of field, their linear combination is also an element of W, then W automatically becomes a subspace. Okay, so this condition alone is sufficient to check whether a space is a subspace of a given vector space or not. Okay, so what it says, you take any two elements, if the linear combination, okay, if the linear combination is also an element of W, then that is said to be a vector space. Okay, some examples are given here. Okay, so if you have if you consider V as a vector space of all matrices of order n, all square matrices of order n, okay, with respect to you can say matrix addition and scalar multiplication, okay, over the field of real numbers. Let us say field is real numbers. Okay, then if you consider W1 is a subset which is a set of all triangular matrices, okay, then that itself is a vector space USTL. Okay, so if you take all if you take the set of matrices of, let us say, 2 by 2 matrices A, B, C, D, so that A, B, C, D belongs to the set of real numbers. That means to say that this is M 2 by 2. Okay, so this set of matrices is going to form a vector space over the field of real numbers, because my field I have taken as R. We can call it as a real vector space. Okay, so this vector space, what are the operations I said? Matrix addition, A plus B, matrix addition, which is vector addition, and scalar multiplication, 2 into A. 2 is a real number, A is a matrix, scalar multiplication. With respect to matrix addition and scalar multiplication, this is going to be a vector space. Okay, for this you take a subset called something like AB0D. Okay, so what is this? This is this upper triangular or lower triangular element of this set of elements of this form?
Upper.
Okay. So the set of upper triangular matrices is also going to form a space with respect to usual addition of matrices and scalar multiplication. Okay, you take you add any two upper triangular matrices, again you will get an upper triangular matrix, right? And scalar into upper triangular matrix is a upper triangular. That means to say that a linear combination of two upper triangular matrices is also an upper triangular matrix. Therefore, you can say the set of upper triangular matrices forms a subspace over the set of 2 by 2 matrices. Similarly, set of lower triangular matrices forms a subspace. Set of triangular matrices, which are upper triangular as well as lower triangular, also forms a subspace of the given uh, vector space of matrices of order 2. Similarly, you take space of polynomials. Okay, so if you take a space of polynomials of degree at most n, okay, and you know how to add two polynomials, and you know how to multiply a polynomial with a number. 2 into x square plus 3 is 2x square plus 6, which is another polynomial. So there is addition of polynomials. There is a multiplication of a polynomial by a scalar. The set of polynomials of degree at most n is going to form a vector space over the field of real numbers. Okay, and what is a subspace? If you take the set of all even powers, if you take all even powers of t, okay, which is a subset of Pn of t. Okay, that means to say that q equal to p2n, not p2n, pn by 2, let us say, where n is an even number. If you take the set of all even degree polynomials, that is also forms a subspace of the vector space. Sum of two even degree polynomials is again a even degree polynomial. If you multiply an even degree polynomial with a scalar, again you will get an even degree polynomial only. So that forms a subspace over the set of even degree polynomials is going to form a subspace of the set of polynomials of degree less than or equal to n. Similarly, if you take the set of real valued functions, okay, and w is a continuous functions, okay, and w2 is a differentiable functions, okay. So these two are forms a subspace of the set of real valued functions. You know, sum of two continuous functions is a continuous function. Am I right? And if you are multiplying a continuous function with a constant function, that is also a continuous function, right? That means sum of continuous functions. Therefore, the set of continuous functions forms a vector space. Similarly, you know, sum of two differentiable functions is a differentiable function. Multiplication of a differentiable function with a constant is also a differentiable function. That means linear combination of any two differentiable functions. If f is a differentiable, g is differentiable, then linear combination of f and g. What is linear combination of f of x and g of x? Linear combination of f of x is g of x is c1 f of x plus c2 g of x. Okay, if you say that f and g are continuous, you know the linear combination is also continuous. Therefore, according to the theorem, the set of all continuous functions forms a subspace of the set of real valued functions. Similarly, if you think f and g are differentiable functions, linear combination of two differentiable functions is also differentiable functions. Therefore, the set of differentiable functions also forms a subspace of the set of real valued functions. So there is a theorem saying that intersection of any number of subspace is also a subspace. That means W1 is a subspace, W2 is a subspace, W1 intersection W2 is also a subspace of the same space P. Okay, and already we discussed about span. Okay, so that is whatever the set we were discussing, the set can be denoted like this. Okay, here I did not give any notation to this. What is the notation to this? This is called span. Span. A span of what? If you are considering U as a set of vectors u1, u2, and so on, um, then you can call it as a span U. That means the set of all possible linear combinations of a given set of vectors is going to be a set. That set is going to be the span U. Now, what the theorem says is this span, the set generated by all possible linear combinations is actually a subspace of the given space. Okay, so the set of all possible linear combinations forms a subspace of a vector space, and this is the smallest subspace of the vector space containing the set S. That means you are given a sector, you are given a vector space V. Okay, you are having some set of vectors u1, u2, and so on um. Using these vectors, you are generating a set by taking all these linear combinations. That is going to be like this. Okay, so these are u1, u2, u3. The set formed by this u1, u2, is going to call as a span U, span or linear span. Okay, and the theorem says that this linear span is actually subspace of the given space V, and this is the smallest subspace containing the set S. What is S? S is nothing but the set of elements. So if I consider this as a set S, okay, if I take the span of this set S, you are going to get a subspace. Okay, so you have a set S. Using this set, you are generating a set, okay, which is a superset of S. Obviously, span of S contains the set S. Okay, and this set is actually subspace of the vector space V. That is what the theorem says. And not only that, what the result says, this is the smallest subspace. This is the smallest subspace of V which contains the set S. That means you take any subspace of V containing the set S, that is going to contain the span S. That is going to contain this. That means to say that this is the smallest subspace of V containing the set S. That means you take any subspace of V containing S, that subspace is actually going to be a superset of the span set. Is this clear to you?
Yes, sir.
So please realize that you can generate a span, you can generate a subspace just by taking the span of the given set of vectors. So how they look like? Okay, if you take V is a vector space. V is a vector space. You take one non-zero vector. You take one non-zero vector. You take all possible linear combinations of that vector. Suppose if I take 1, 2, 3. What is 1, 2, 3 actually? You tell me? So this is x-axis, this is y-axis, and this is z-axis. 1, 2, 3 is a point here. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So 1, 2, 3 is nothing but a position vector. Can you see? That means nothing but 1i bar plus 2j bar plus 3k bar. And what are the possible linear combinations? If I call this as u, what is span of u? It is in the form alpha into u such that alpha belongs to the set of real numbers. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
And what is a span of u? That means you take all 1, 2, 3, you take some scalar 2. What is 2 into 1, 2, 3? 2, 4, 6. Where will be this 2, 4, 6? It will be somewhere here. Just if you extend the line, somewhere you will find out 2, 4, 6. That means any multiple of a vector is going to be a vector in the same direction. You agree or not? And same direction or opposite direction depends on the scalar is positive or negative. Am I right? So,
Yes.
and I said the set of all possible linear combinations is going to form a subspace of the original space. And I know the set of all possible linear combinations are nothing but the set of vectors which are passing through the origin U. And do you agree that every subspace also contains origin? Because 0 is an element of the space. 0 is an element of the space. So every space, 0 element is also a part of the space. That means if any vector is not, if the space is not containing origin, if the space is not if the set is not containing the origin, then that cannot be a subspace. That cannot be vector space. So all scalar multiples of this vector is going to be form a line which is passing through the origin. So this line can be viewed as a subspace of R cube. Not only this line, any line passing through the origin can be viewed as a subspace. And what is another subspace? Instead of one vector, you take two vectors. You take all possible linear combinations of those two vectors. Okay, all those possible linear combinations of those two vectors forms a plane. You take one vector, you take another vector. The linear combination is also a vector, which is going to lie on a plane containing u and v. You know from algebra of vectors. Okay, so if you take all such linear combinations of u and v, that is going to form a plane which contains origin. So any plane which is passing through the origin, or any plane which contains the origin, is going to be a subspace of the three-dimensional space. So which are not subspaces? Which planes are not subspaces? Where 0 is not part of the plane. Is it clear? So geometrically you identify which planes are subspaces, which are not. Which lines are subspaces, which are not. Okay. Shall I proceed? Is this clear? What is the linear span of this? Alpha 1 u plus alpha 2 v, such that alpha 1 comma alpha 2 belongs to the set of real numbers. This is the space. This is a subspace of so this is a space generated by this is a space generated by u and v. Therefore we call it as span of u comma v. Or if you consider u comma v as s, you can call it as span of s, where s is equal to the set u comma v. Okay, so geometrically this represents this set. Okay, this is a subspace. This subspace represents a plane containing the origin 0. Shall I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Next concept is about linear dependence and independence, and we several times we discussed about this concept. Okay, and we say the set of vectors are linearly dependent. We say the set of vectors are linearly dependent if there exists a set of scalars, not all zero. That means there is at least one non-zero scalar such that the linear combination is zero. If such a set of scalars exist, then the set of given set of vectors are going to be called as linearly dependent. Otherwise, they are linearly independent. Otherwise, they are said to be linearly dependent. And we discussed about this concept several times, something like 1, 2, 2, 4. Okay, and these two are linearly dependent. Why? Because there are some elements like this. Minus 2 into 1, 1 to 2 plus 1 into 2 comma 4 equal to what is the sum? What is the linear combination? Minus 2 plus 2 is 0. Minus 4 plus 4 is 0. That means I'm able to find out if I call this as V1 and V2. If I call this as A1 and A2, I'm able to find out A1 and A2 such that A1 V1 plus A2 V2 equal to 0, where A1 equal to minus 2, A2 equal to 1. So there exists at least one non-zero scalar such that the linear combination is becoming 0. Therefore, we say these two are linearly dependent vectors. Same concept is for 3 vectors. If you want to say 3 vectors are linearly dependent, A1 V1 plus A2 V2 plus A3 V3 must be 0, such that at least one of A1, A2, A3 must be non-zero. At least one of the scalars must be non-zero. If that is the case, we say these 3 are linearly dependent, otherwise linearly independent. As we discussed earlier, if I take 1, 2 and let us say 0, 1, I cannot find out 2 scalars such that the linear combination is becoming 0. The linear combination becomes 0. Okay, so therefore these two are this linear combination A1 into this vector plus A2 into this vector can be 0 only when I take A1 equal to 0, A2 equal to 0. That means both scalars must be 0. Then only I can make this linear combination 0. Otherwise, it is impossible to make this linear combination 0. That's why I will say these two vectors are linearly independent. Is it okay? And there are several properties like if you have a set of independent vectors, any subset of linearly independent vectors is also independent vector. Equivalently, if you have a dependent set of vectors, any superset of dependent vectors is also dependent set of vectors. If you have any set which contains 0 vector, that automatically forms a linearly dependent set. For example, you take U1, U2, U3. I don't know whether this is linearly dependent or not, but I'm adding an element U1, U2, U3 and 0. This becomes linearly dependent. Why? Because 0 into U1 plus 0 into U2 plus 0 into U3 plus 1 into 0 equal to 0. Agreed or not?
Yes, sir.
What are scalars? A1 equal to 0, A2 equal to 0, A3 equal to 0, and what is A4? 1. Therefore, I'm able to find out at least one non-zero scalar such that the linear combination is becoming 0. Therefore, the given set of vectors are going to be automatically linearly dependent. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So if you identify 0 element, 0 vector in a given set, automatically immediately you can declare that it is going to be linearly dependent set. And what is the other result says? Any superset of a linearly dependent set, any superset of a linearly dependent set is linearly dependent. If I say this is linearly dependent, you take any superset. This is also linear. If this is linearly dependent, automatically this is also linearly dependent. And any subset, okay, if this is linearly independent subset, any subset of linearly independent subset is also linearly independent. Okay, so any superset is linearly dependent, any subset is linearly independent. They are the, and any set containing zero element is going to be a linearly dependent set. Okay, so there are some of the properties on linearly independency and dependency. And there are some examples of linearly dependent. Okay, as I shown earlier. Okay, if I want to check whether these set of vectors are linearly independent or dependent, okay, it is already given that they are linearly dependent because they're able to find out a scalars 3, 5, minus 2. At least one scalar is non-zero, such that the linear combination is becoming zero. He has shown like that. Therefore, you can say that these three vectors are linearly dependent. Similarly, if you want to check whether these three are linearly independent or not, okay, these three are linearly independent only when the linear combination of these three vectors is becoming zero. Okay, so you take the linear combination of these three vectors. What is linear combination of these three vectors? xu plus yv plus zw. Okay, so x into u plus y into v plus z into w. Okay, if I have to say these three vectors are linearly independent, that means to say that x must be 0, y must be 0, z must be 0. If I can show like this, whenever this happens, if I say only that is possible only when x equal to 0, y equal to 0, z equal to 0, that means to say that u, v, w are linearly independent. How can I show that? You take this linear combination. What do you mean by linear combination? X into u plus y into v plus z into w. And you know this is nothing but x plus 2y plus z. X plus 2y plus z must be 0. And 2x plus 5y plus 3z. 2x plus 5y plus 3z equal to 0. And 3x plus 7y plus 5z. 3x plus 5y plus 7z equal to 0. So linear combination of three vectors equal to 0 is actually nothing but a homogeneous system of linear equations. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
And you know how to solve the homogeneous system? It is in the form Ax equal to 0. When Ax equal to 0 has unique solution which is x equal to 0, can you tell me? When it is going to have only 0 solution, no other solution, when that will happen? Do you remember? When the rank of the quotient matrix is equal to the number of variables n. That means what is the quotient matrix here?
A.
1, 2, 1, 2, 5, 3, 3, 7, 5. You find out the rank. How do you find out the rank? There are two ways. One is convert this into echelon form and identify the number of non-zero rows. Or because it is a square matrix, you find out the determinant. If the determinant is turning out to be non-zero, then what will be the rank? What is the rank of a non-singular matrix A of order n? What is the rank of a matrix is relative to R? When this R becomes n, when A is non-singular, if it is a square matrix, okay? Or you convert into echelon form, you count the number of non-zero rows, you will notice that rank equal to 3. So a rank equal to 3, it is having only one solution, which is a trivial solution. What is the trivial solution? X equal to 0, y equal to 0, and z equal to 0. That means this linear combination is 0 only for these values of x, y, z. That means to say that x, y, z are linearly independent. Can you please find out the rank now once? Find out the rank of this matrix 1, 2, 1, 2, 5, 3, 3, 7, 5. Please find out the rank in the rough work.
Sir, can you show the screen once? 3, sir.
Rank 3, right? So
Yes,
because rank equal to the number of variables, it will not have any non-zero solution. It is having only zero solution. Okay, therefore they are linearly independent. If there is a non-zero solution, then we will be telling that these three are linearly dependent. Okay, that's why you should be good at solving the system of linear equations. Okay, so if you are good at those concepts, these concepts will be better understood. So next one is about linear dependence. Okay, okay. So again, similar geometrical interpretation. Okay, so this is one subspace, this is another subspace. Okay, so if you say two vectors are linearly dependent if they lie on the same line. Okay, so you are given two vectors, you draw the graph. Okay, if you think that they are in the same direction, that means they are linearly dependent. That means one vector is a multiple of another vector, that means they are linearly dependent. Similarly, if three vectors lying on a plane, automatically they are going to be linearly dependent. If three vectors lying on a plane means what? One vector can be expressed as a linear combination of the remaining two vectors, like C1 U plus C2 W. Okay, that means they are linearly dependent because you are able to express one vector as a linear combination of the remaining vectors. The given set of vectors are going to be linearly dependent. So for a if you take any four vectors, if you take any four vectors in R cube in a three-dimensional space, if you take more than three vectors, the linear combination of four vectors is going to be a vector in the three-dimensional space. That means all the linear combinations are falling into R cube. Therefore, any four or more vectors are going to be linearly dependent. Next one is a very important concept called basis and dimensions. So far we understood about spanning of a set of vectors, and we also understood about whether a given how to determine whether a given set of vectors are linearly independent or dependent. Now, what do you mean by basis of a vector space? If it is satisfying two conditions. What is the first condition? This set has to be linearly independent. And S spans V. That means what? V equal to span of S. That means you take all possible linear combinations of U1 to Un. Okay, if the resultant set is actually equal to the original space V, okay, and this S itself is a linearly independent subset, then we say the set S is a basis. Then we say the set S is a basis of the given vector space V. Okay, and the theorem says that a vector space can have several bases. All bases will have same number of elements. That means a vector space can be spanned by U1, U2, and so on, Um. The same vector space can be spanned by V1, V2, and so on, Vn. Okay, and if I say U1, U2, Um are linearly independent, if I say V1, V2, Vn are also linearly independent, then M must be equal to N, because if these two are, if these are all linearly independent and spanning the set means what? This is a basis, and these are all linearly independent and spanning the same set means what? This is also basis, and so these two are bases of the same vector space, and any two bases will contain the same number of elements. That means M must be equal to N. Okay, so then what is the dimension? Dimension is nothing but the number of elements of the basis. Number of elements of the number of elements in the basis is called the dimension. Okay, and the space is said to be finite dimensional if that number n is a finite number. Okay, That means if the set is able, if you are able to generate a given space with a finitely many set of linearly independent vectors, then that is said to be finite dimensional, otherwise infinite dimensional vector space. And you know, singleton zero also forms a vector space over the field of real numbers or any field. This cannot be generated by any non-zero vector except zero. But you know, I said any set containing singleton zero is going to be linearly dependent. Okay, is going to be linearly dependent. Okay, therefore singleton zero does not have any dimension because it is not having any basis. Okay, therefore we say it is a null space having zero dimension. Okay, so any space with zero dimension is nothing but singleton zero. And if the basis is containing infinite set of independent vectors, okay, if the basis is infinite set, then the vector space is to be infinitely dimensional vector space. Okay, so vector space is said to be finite dimensional or infinite dimensional according to the number of elements that are present in the basis. If the number of elements present in the basis is finite, then V is said to be finite dimensional. If the number of elements present in the basis are infinite, then V is said to be infinite dimensional. Okay, so you can have finite dimensional vector spaces, you can have infinite dimensional vector spaces also. And you, whatever the thing you see R cube is a three-dimensional vector space. What is, because it is a span of three vectors. What are those three vectors? 1 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 1. Okay, any vector x y z can be expressed as a linear combination of three vectors. What are those? E1, E2 and E3. What is E1? E1 is 1 0 0. What is E2? 0 1 0. What is E3? 0 0 1. Okay, because you are able to express any vector as a linear combination of three vectors, that means these three vectors E1, E2, E3 spans the vector space. And notice that these three vectors are also linearly independent. Therefore, these three vectors actually forming a basis, because these are all linearly independent and forms generating the given given space R cube. Therefore, it is a basis. 1 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 1 is forms a basis for the space. What is the dimension of the space? Dimension of the space is 3, because base is containing 3 elements. Therefore, this is called 3-dimensional space. If the base is containing 4 dimensions, we'll call it as 4-dimensional space. If the base is containing only 2 elements, we'll call it as a 2-dimensional space. Okay. And I said earlier, these three are the only set which spans this given R cube. Okay, any three linearly independent vectors also can generate the space. Any three linearly independent vectors. Similarly, you can see the set of R by S matrices. Set of R by S matrices. If you take its basis, if its basis vectors are like this: 1 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 1. This non-zero element is moving. Okay, so you take any element of order 2 by 3 that can be expressed as a linear combination of only these 6 vectors. Therefore, these 6 vectors forms a basis for the set of matrices of order R by S. Therefore, what is the dimension of the space of R by S matrices? Can you tell me? What is the dimension of this space M? How many vectors are there in its basis? What is its basis? This one only, no? This forms a basis because these are all linearly independent, and any vector, any matrix A can be expressed as a linear combination of these x1 a1 plus or you can call it as e1. If you call this as e1, you call this as e2 and so on, e6. Any matrix can be expressed as a linear combination of 6 matrices which are linearly independent. Therefore, what is the dimension?
6.
6. It's a 6-dimensional vector space of matrices of 2 by 3. Okay. So in general, if you are taking all matrices of order r by s, its dimension is going to be r into s, because 2 into 3 is 6, r into s is rs. Okay. But if you take the space of all polynomials of degree less than or equal to n, okay, these are the basis elements: 1 t, t square, t cube, and so on, t power n. Any polynomial of degree n or any polynomial of degree less than or equal to n can be expressed as linear combination of these n plus 1 elements, and these n plus n elements are linearly independent. Therefore, this generates a space of polynomials of degree less than or equal to 1. Therefore, it is going to be a finite dimensional space. What is the dimension of this space? Number of elements in the basis. How many?
N plus 1.
N plus. So, space of polynomials of degree n plus 1 is an n plus 1th dimensional space. That means if I take a space of polynomials of degree less than or equal to 2, what is its dimension?
3.
3. It's a 3-dimensional space. Okay. If you take space of all polynomials, that means degree can be anything 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to, it can be 1000 or 1 lakh or anything. That means the basis elements will be obviously 1 t, t square, t cube. There is no upper limit for degree. So you take any polynomial that can be expressed as a linear combination of elements of this set. Okay, therefore this generates the set of all polynomials, and all these elements are linearly independent. Therefore, this forms a basis of the set of polynomials, and because this basis is containing infinitely many elements, the set of all polynomials is going to form a infinite dimensional space. Do you follow?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. Now there are some more results on basis. Okay, and basis is the largest linearly independent set. That means if I say dimension of a vector space is 4, you cannot find out a linearly independent set containing 5 elements, u1, u2, and so on, u5. Any set which is more than 4 is going to be linearly dependent set. If I say dimension of V is n, any set containing more than elements automatically linearly dependent. No need to check anything. Automatically it is going to be a linearly dependent set, because basis only is going to be maximally linearly independent set. That's why I said earlier, if you take 4 vectors, what is the dimension of R cube? Obviously, dimension of R cube is 3, and any set of vectors more than n are going to form a linearly dependent set. Therefore, 4 or more vectors is going to naturally form a linearly dependent set. And if you take a set of vectors less than or equal to 3, you cannot say they are going to be dependent or independent. You have to test. But any set of vectors more than n, where n is the dimension of the space, then automatically it is going to be a linearly dependent set. Okay, and any superset of a spanning set also spans the set. Okay, so if I'm taking a set, yes, if its span is the whole space V, okay, then you take any superset of S. This spanning is also the given space V only. Okay, that means basis is the smallest subset. Basis is the smallest subset which spans the entire vector space. Okay, that means you take any set of vectors which is spanning a given vector space. Those set of vectors, the number of elements in those vectors definitely equal or more than the number of elements in the set S. Okay, so that is what these results are telling. Okay, so next, if you want to know which of the following, whether these set of vectors are linearly dependent or not, okay, see, you put the vectors into matrix form. Put the vectors into matrix form and find the rank of the matrix. Okay, and that means nothing but the number of non-zero rows. Okay, if that number of non-zero rows equal to the number of rows, then they are going to be linearly independent. Otherwise, they are going to be linearly dependent. Okay, so if you put them in, if you form a matrix by putting them as a row vectors and find the rank, you will identify that the rank is going to be 4. Therefore, these vectors are going to be linearly independent. If the rank is less than 4, then you will say that they are going to be linearly dependent vectors. Okay. And you can see if I have a space V of dimension n, you take a subset of subspace of V. What will be the dimension of W? Can it be more than n? Can the dimension of a subspace can be more than the dimension of a space? That is not possible, right? So that is what the result says. Dimension of every subspace is at most n. That means dimension of subspace is always less than or equal to n. Okay. This I will come again. I will come back to this point again. Okay. Now I think you can understand the solution space. You know the properties of solutions, right? See, you have homogeneous system Ax equal to 0. What are the properties of solutions of this homogeneous system? Let us say x1 comma x2 are two solutions of this homogeneous system. Okay. If they're okay, let us say S is the let us say you have a set of solutions, set of all solutions, set of all solutions of Ax equal to 0. So I'm taking a solution x1 and I'm taking another solution x2. I'm taking another solution x2. Solutions means what? They will satisfy the homogeneous system, no? That means what? Ax1 equal to 0 and Ax2 is also equal to 0. Is that okay? What about the linear combination of x1 and x2? That means c1 x1 plus c2 x2. Is it also a solution? How do you check? You multiply a to this linear combination. So this is nothing but a into cx1 by distributive law plus a into c1 x1 plus a into c2 x2. Am I right? Now you know c1 c2 are scalars. Okay, therefore I can write this as c1 into ax1 plus c2 into ax2. But what is ax1? 0 plus what is ax2? 0.
0.
That means c1 x1 plus c2 x2 is also a solution of the homogeneous system Ax equal to 0. Right? So if x1 x2 are two solutions, the linear combination is also a c1 x1 plus c2 x2 is also a solution. That means this also an element belongs to the set of solutions. Okay, so if you take any two vectors, if the linear combination also belong to the same set of set, then what is that set called? Subspace. Am I right? When can I say W is a subspace of V? For every u comma v belongs to W, if alpha u plus beta v belongs to also an element of W, then I say W is a subspace of V. That is what I'm having. No, you take any two vectors x1 and x2, the linear combination is also an element of the same set. Therefore, this set actually a subspace. That means this is actually a subspace. So the set of all solutions of the homogeneous system forms a vector space. Forms a vector space of dimension less than or equal to n, because x contains what are the elements of x? Elements of x are x1, x2, and so on xn. Okay, so it is going to have a dimension less than or equal to n. Okay, so that is what it is discussed here. Okay, where is this? Okay, so what is the dimension? The dimension of the solution space, the set of all solutions form a space, I said, no? Okay, every space will have a dimension. So dimension of that solution space is going to be n minus r. What is n? N is the number of variables and r is the rank of the quotient matrix. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, what is the next concept? Next concept is about row space and column space. Okay. So, what are row spaces and column space? This also I discussed in the class. Suppose you have a matrix. Okay. Like this. Let us say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 8. Okay. If you are considering each row, let me take a rectangular matrix. Let me say 1, 2, 3. So this is a 3 by 4 matrix. Okay, so you can see this matrix is a matrix of row vectors. So I can see this as R1, R2, R3. What is R1? R1 is 1, 2, 3, 1. R2 is 4, 5, 6, 2. R3 is 7, 1, 8, 3. And you can span a set by using these three vectors. Okay, so that means what? Let us say set w equal what? Span of r1, r2, r3. And you know, any set which is spanned by a given set of vectors is going to be a subspace. That means the set the space you are going to generate a space which is spanned by these row vectors. Okay, that is called a row space. So what is a row space? Row space is a space formed by the space spanned by the row vectors. Similarly, you can generate a column space. What is column space? You can see this matrix as matrix containing 4 column vectors. Okay, so I can call this as, I can see this as C1, C2, C3 and C4. Again, I can generate a space V which is equal to span of C1, C2, C3, C4. Again, that is also going to form a space because span of any given set of vectors is going to form a space. So that space is called column space. Okay, so because it is generated by set of columns of a matrix, that is called column space. And the result says that dimension of the column space is equal to the dimension of the row space. Okay, this will have a certain dimension. This also will have certain dimension, and the result says is its span of the dimension of the row space. Dimension of the row space is called row rank. Dimension of the column space is called column rank. Okay, and the result says that row rank is equal to column rank. Result says that row space is equal to row rank is equal to column rank. Okay, so that is what the result says. Okay, or you can say that the space both spaces will have same dimensions. The spaces generated by column vectors will have the same dimension as the space generated by the row vectors. Okay, how to test whether given set of vectors generating the same space or not? You see an example like this. You have vectors like this u1, u2, u3. Find out the dimension of the space generated by this. How do you find out the dimension of the space generated by these three vectors? you put them as columns or rows. In this case, they are placed in the rows of a matrix. 1 2 minus 1 3, 1 2 minus 1 3, 2 4 1 minus 2, 2 4 1 minus 2, 3 6 3 minus 7, 3 6 3 minus 7. Convert this into echelon form. You identify the number of non-zero rows, 2. So what is the rank of the row space? What is the rank of the space generated by these three vectors?
2.
The number of non-zero rows in the echelon form of the matrix. So dimension of the space is, so if I say W1 equal to span of U1, U2, U3, what I am telling, what is the dimension of W1?
2, sir.
2. Okay. Similarly, if I say W2 is equal to span of small w1 and small w2, these are the vectors. Okay, you put them into again vectors. See, 1 2 minus 4 11, 1 2 minus 4 11, 2 4 minus 5 14, 2 4 minus 5 14. Okay, you convert this into echelon form. Okay, again you can see that there are two non-zero rows. Okay, therefore what is the rank?
2.
So dimension of this space is also 2.
2.
So from this what we can conclude is both spaces are having the same dimension, but I am not telling both are equal spaces. Both will be equal spaces if the non-zero rows are same. See, 1 2 0 1 by 3, 1 2 0 1 by 3, 0 1 0 0 1 minus 8 by 3, 0 0 1 minus 8 by 3. Because the non-zero rows are same, that means space generated by these three vectors is same as the space generated by these two vectors, because this is a null vector. Null vector has doesn't have any contribution in generating the space, because I said any vector any set containing zero vectors forms a linearly dependent set. Okay, so basically these two are generating the same space, though I'm writing two sets differently. They're actually same spaces. Instead of 8 by 3, suppose if this is only 8, then W1 will be different from W2. Do you agree? W1 will be different from W2, but their dimensions are same. Their dimensions are same because they are generated by same number of non-zero rows. This is generated by 2 non-zero rows. This is also generated by 2 non-zero rows. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
And if somebody asks you what is the basis of W1, can you tell me the basis vectors?
The 2 row 1 2 0 1 by 3 0 0 1.
Yeah. So the non-zero vectors which are there, which are in the echelon form only, will form the basis. Okay. So a basis of A is this. A basis of B is these two non-zero vectors. Okay. So finally, what is rank of a matrix? Because I said column space rank is equal to row space rank. Therefore, I can say rank of a matrix is the rank of the row space matrix, or I can say rank of the column space matrix. Because rank is nothing but dimension of rank row space or the dimension of the column space. So the rank of the matrix A is written as rank A is equal to the maximum number of linearly independent rows, which maximum number of linearly independent rows. This one only. Okay. Which is the dimension of the row space. Okay. So how to find the basis? As I said earlier, if you're asked to find out the basis, you just convert into you just put those given vectors, you just put the given vectors in rows and convert into echelon form. Identify the non-zero rows in the echelon form. They are going to form a basis for the given vectors. But if somebody may ask you, find the pick up the vectors from the given set of vectors which generate the given space. That means I don't want these two. Among these three, definitely I know two will generate the space. Okay, which two of these two vectors are going to generate the original space? I don't want this. I want a basis containing the given set of vectors. If you want to know like that, okay, then what you do, you just put that vectors into columns. Okay, 1 2 1 3 2, 1 2 1 3 2. 1 3 3 5 3, 1 3 3 5 3, 3 8 7 13 8, 3 8 7 13 8. Okay, 1 4 6 9 7, 1 4 6 9 7, 5 13 13. Okay, you put these vectors in columns. You convert this into echelon form. Now identify the columns which contain the pivot elements. Okay, in these columns, which elements are containing? First, identify the pivot elements. Can you tell me the pivot elements in this echelon form of the matrix? In the first row, what is the pivot? In the first row, 1 is the pivot, right? Do you agree? What is pivot? Pivot is the first non-zero entry, right? Pivot is the first non-zero entry in an echelon form of a matrix. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Similarly, in the second row, what is the pivot? 1. In the third row, what is the pivot? 1. Okay. So which columns are containing the pivots? This. That means find out the identify the corresponding columns. Okay, this one. So that means leave the columns which does not contain the pivot. Leave the columns which does not contain the pivots. Okay, and so the corresponding remaining columns are going to form a basis. Okay, so I can form the space generated by these 3 vectors, or I can form the space generated by these 3 vectors. Both spaces are same, and the dimension of the space is going to be, what is the dimension of the space generated by these 5 vectors?
3.
Because how many? What is the rank of this matrix?
3, sir.
3. Number of non-zero rows. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you put them as a rows or columns, because row space dimension is equal to column space dimension. Okay, therefore you're going to have only 3 linearly independent vectors. So though you see 5 components, the space formed by 5 vectors is not going to be 5 dimensional, because these 5 vectors is going to form a linearly dependent set. So remove the vectors which are making this set become linearly dependent. Okay, what are those 2 vectors that are removed? These 2 vectors. Okay, so that means remove u3 and u5. Then these 3 will form a basis. These 5 will span a 3-dimensional space. These 4 also forms a 3-dimensional space. These 3 also forms a 3-dimensional space. And these 4 linearly dependent, these 5 linearly dependent, these 3 linearly independent and spanning the same row space. Therefore, this is a basis. These 4 spanning but not a basis, because they are linearly dependent. So now do you understand the difference between spanning and basis? Okay, a set is spanning the space doesn't mean that set is basis. The set has to be linearly independent. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Right. So I'll just discuss one more concept, and I think from linear transformations I will start in the next class. Let us see it as a revision class. Okay, so if you are asked to determine whether the given set of vectors are linearly dependent or not, there are different methods. What is the first method that we discussed? Linear dependency means what? XU plus YV plus W, ZW must be 0 for at least one non-zero scalars of x, y, z. That means if you can find out a non-zero solution of Ax equal to 0, then they are going to be linearly dependent. That is one way of doing. Okay, that means what is the linear combination you see? X into u plus y into v plus z into w equal to 0 means 0, 0, 0. This can be converted into system of linear equations. System of linear equations is Ax equal to 0. Okay, and if it is having non-zero solution, when the rank is when it is going to have a non-zero solution, when rank of A equal to R is less than n, you can see the rank is 2, because the number of equations are reduced to 2 equations. Okay, that means there is going to be a non-zero solution. That means these 3 together forms a linearly dependent set, or that is what we were discussing here. You put these vectors in rows 1 1 2 1 1 2. You can put these vectors in rows or column, doesn't matter. Conventionally most of the people put them in columns. So 1 1 2 2 3 1 4 5 5, convert into echelon form. See the rank is less than n number of variables, therefore they are going to be linearly dependent, because the space generated by these three vectors is going to have dimension 2, not dimension 3. Therefore these three are any set of vectors which is more than the dimension is going to form a linearly dependent set, I said. So three vectors from a two-dimensional space, obviously linearly dependent. Okay, so as discussed earlier, either you put them in columns or you put them in rows 1 1 2 2 3 1. See here, it was put here 1 1 2 2 3 1. Previously they were put in columns, now they were put in rows. Again convert into echelon form. Again you will find the same rank does not change, okay, by putting them as rows or columns. So because the rank is less than the number of variables, the given set of vectors are going to be linearly dependent. So last concept, what do you mean by coordinates of a vector? Okay, suppose the given set is a basis of a vector space. Okay, what do you mean by basis? You take any vector, that vector can be expressed as a linear combination of these n linearly independent eigenvectors. Then these vectors are called coordinates of the vector v with respect to the basis s. Sometimes they are denoted as a row vector, some other times they are denoted with as a column vector, a1 a2 and so on, an. See an example here. Okay, what is the standard basis for R cube? Standard basis for R cube is 1 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 1. Do you agree? This is one basis, and this is another basis. This is another basis. Why this is another basis? Because this basis containing three vectors, which is equal to the dimension of the space, and these three forms these three together becomes linearly independent set. Why they are linearly independent set? You put them as row vectors and find out the rank. You will observe that rank of the matrix is going to be 3. Okay, therefore this also forms a basis for R cube. Now you take a randomly selected vector 5 3 4. Okay, I want to find out the coordinates of this vector relative to this basis. What are the coordinates of this vector relative to this standard basis? Can you see? 5 3 4. Let us call this as E1 E2 E3. This can be written as 5 into 1 0 0 plus 3 into 0 1 0 plus 4 into 0 0 1. So this is in the form 5E1 plus 3E2 plus 4E3. Okay, so this is V. So what is the coordinates of the vector V with respect to the basis S1? Let us say this basis is called S1. That is nothing but 5 3 2. Either you write like this, okay, generally they are denoted with square brackets, or you write 5 3 2 depending on the context. So these are the coordinate vectors relative to the standard basis. Okay, but this coordinate vector will change when you change the basis. Okay, relative to this basis, this vector can be expressed as a linear combination of these three vectors like this. How do you find out? If I want to express this vector as a linear combination of a given set of vectors, I explained the procedure earlier. Take the linear combination x plus y plus 0 equal to 5, minus x plus y plus z equal to 3, 0 plus 0 plus z equal to 4. So when z equal to 4, okay, and this is a non-homogeneous system, you solve the system, okay, then you will identify that x equal to 2, x equal to 3, x equal to 3, and y equal to 2 and z equal to 4. Okay, so I'm able to express this V as a linear combination of these three vectors. Okay, actually here it was written as V1 V2 V3, here it is written as U1 U2 U3. Actually they are U1 U2 U3. Okay, so therefore, what is the coordinate vector? So if I say S2, if I say S2 is another basis, what is another basis? U1, U2, U3. So what is the coordinate vector of this V with respect to the relative to the basis S2? This is going to be 3, 2, 4, or I can write it as 3, 2, 4. So that means to say that your coordinate vector will change when you change the basis. With respect to one basis, we have one coordinate vector. If you change the basis, you will get another coordinate vector. Is this clear to all of you? Do you understand how to find out a coordinate vector relative to a given basis?
Yes, sir.
Right. So in the next class, we'll discuss about linear transformations. We'll discuss about linear transformations and an important theorem called rank nullity theorem. See, all these things we are discussing only to understand this theorem. Okay, so for this, all these concepts lay a foundation to understand this theorem. Otherwise, you cannot understand this. Okay, so it's a foundation that is required to understand this important theorem called rank nullity theorem. And if you look into syllabus, I would like to show the syllabus ones. These concepts are not properly ordered. See, see here, rank nullity theorem, vectors, vector spaces. Without vector spaces, how can we discuss rank nullity theorem? Okay, so like that, similarly, linear transformation. Rank nullity theorem will come after linear transformation only. Okay, so we need to know about these concepts, then only we can come into rank nullity theorem. And data matrix, it will come into picture in principal component analysis. Okay, and dimensionality reduction is a part of principal component analysis and singular value decomposition. Okay, and this is not actually dot product, this is called actually inner product spaces. So what I'm trying to say is